might say. We are in Chicken Man land. It's 6:10. I woke them up. They all jumped down from their perch. I gave them more food and water. And they were just all eating. They will go back to eating. I just kind of excited them for a moment, so they just came over here. Watch. They're hungry little guys. I better not drop my phone. You're the big teapot. The big teapot eats. Fluffy dots. Both black mans just jumped up on something. Hey, black man. Hey, Dr. Sweets. You are black man. And you are Dr. Sweets. Hey, Teapot. How are you this morning? I came and woke you up with a tasty treat of food, didn't I? Oh, did you want to get past me? I'll move. I understand, Teapot. So you have to let Teapot do what she wants, because she's their leader, and you have to show her respect. Because if the chickens see that you show Teapot respect, even the human shows their leader respect, then they definitely have even more awe and respect for their leader. Because not only do they already respect her and defer to her and let her go first with everything, but if they see that other creatures do it too, the Teapot really must be powerful, and they're never going to step out of line with Teapot. Ever since they established Teapot as the leader, I always made sure to show deference and respect to Teapot. In a way, I always treated all the chickens nicely, but I do what I want with the chickens, except for Teapot. When Teapot wants to go past me or something, she wants to go somewhere, or whatever the case may be, when I see that I'm in her way or something, I'll make a point to show the other chickens that I will, lower myself to the great Teapot. I just think it's good. It's a good example for them. I mean, they should never have any reason to question their leader, and they never have. I've seen when back when they were much younger, when two of them would have a fight, sometimes the one who was getting beat up would run and find Teapot and just stand behind her. And Teapot would just stand still, but stand between the chickens, and the aggressor, the one that was chasing her, would just look at Teapot and be like, well, I guess that means you don't want me fighting this chicken anymore. And then she'd just walk away, and then they would both stop fighting. Because when one hides behind Teapot and Teapot stays there willingly as a shield, it means that she's supporting the chicken that's hiding behind her, and if they still want to fight that chicken, they also have to fight Teapot, is what Teapot's saying. So that's basically her way of saying, okay, drop it. Now, if they're fighting and they don't, neither one wants to do that, and they just want to fight, sometimes the fight will go on until one wins, and it doesn't usually last very long, but sometimes Teapot just doesn't want any part of it. And Teapot will go over to most of them and just get really big and just walk after them. They'll walk away, and she kind of chases them a little bit until they're all the way to the fence in any direction, and then Teapot will stay there for a moment and then just walk back. And it's kind of just like, knock it off. And as Teapot follows them and chases them a little bit, they don't go fast, they just kind of walk quickly. They're like, oh my goodness, is Teapot about to beat me up and whoop me? I'm a little bit scared right now. And that's all Teapot has to do because they respect her so much. She's never had to peck anyone or fight anyone. She's only had to give displays of aggression to put them in their place. I've seen her scold them before. When one of them gets scolded by Teapot, the chicken feels really bad because they leave all the rest of the chickens, and it's almost like they're embarrassed and ashamed to go near them because everyone saw that they got scolded by Teapot, and they feel just really, really embarrassed, and it's really stupid and really bad. And whenever that happens, it's rare, but I've seen it maybe 5 or 6 times, that chicken will always leave the pack. You know, they're always outside when this happens, where there's more space, because the chickens mainly stay together. But that one chicken will leave the pack and find a corner or somewhere and just kind of sit or stand by themselves for like, you know, an hour or so, kind of in timeout almost. And then they come back and they have a totally different attitude, totally different perspective, and they get along with everyone suddenly, and it's great. So they definitely respect Teapot, and she's like I said, she's never had to be very physical with any of them, because from such an early age she established that she was the leader, and they've always respected her. And it's good, because if they start questioning the leader, then it's chaos. But they need one established leader, because that's the way chickens work the best. And it's clear. I've seen when they're all hungry or they're all thirsty and there's not much water, or there's not much space to get to the water, there's not much food, and Teapot wants it, Teapot gets it, and no one tries to steal it from Teapot. They just watch her eat and drink, and they wait till she's done. I've seen that a number of times when the situation was like that. And you'll notice when they all are eating grass or anything that sticks out of their mouth, sometimes they'll try to, if they finish their piece, they'll go to a chicken who hasn't finished the one in their mouth, and they'll eat it from the other person's mouth. And you'll notice the Teapot does that the most. She'll steal grass and food from everyone else's mouth. But do you know what? Do you know something? I've never, not even once, seen anyone take any food from Teapot's mouth. I've never seen it. But just yesterday, I believe, or the day before, I got them a whole ton of grass. Teapot was going from chicken to chicken, just taking the grass right out of their mouth that they hadn't finished. Like, just take, you know, because the grass is very long. It's like more than a half foot long. So, you know, they start chomping it down and sucking it down, and there's still quite a bit of grass sticking out of their mouth. Teapot just goes around and takes it from everyone. No one has ever taken it from Teapot, though. So it's clear, it's obvious. Teapot is the established leader. And she's awesome. Look at her. She's just so big and fluffy, and look at the distinctions in the colors and the markings. She's very beautiful. And she's got the fluffy feet, which is just awesome. But and she's the biggest as well. So all of these things, and her temperament is perfect to be the leader. So all of these different characteristics make her the obvious, easy choice for this group of chickens to have chosen for the leader. There was no runner-up in the contest for who would be the leader of this pack. It was Teapot from day one. They didn't know it quite yet, but I did. And very quickly they did. No one's... in the beginning, a few of them, as they got a little bigger, there have been some fluff-offs, as we call them. Instead of like a standoff, it's a fluff-off, where two chickens will get face to face and kind of like see who's bigger, and like, I'm bigger than you, flap, flap, squawk, oh, I'm bigger, until one of them backs down. And early on, when they were younger, this was a very important part of their whole thing. They did this quite often, actually. I believe they were establishing rank early on. That must have been what they were doing, because almost all of them did it once in a while. Like daily, you'd see a few of them. And eventually one backs down. Eventually one always backs down. Eventually, there's always a clear winner standing there with their fluff out, and they're like, I'm bigger than you, I'm ahead of you in rank. There's only one chicken who I've never seen back down from a single fluff-off. Not one. I've seen them do the most fluff-offs of anyone. That would be Teapot. Teapot's never backed out from a fluff-off. Never. Not with anyone, no matter how bad they were. There's even Curie, the meanest of the chickens. The meanest one we have. She's not too mean, but she's not very nice. She has not lost many fluff-offs, not many at all. If she'd get into a mood and she would fluff off Teapot because she thought she was better than Teapot. But guess what? Teapot never backed down. If anything, if the longer it lasted, the more aggressive Teapot would get, and the bigger Teapot would become, because she was not going to allow it to go on very much longer. Teapots won every single Fluff-Off, and they all respected her, and she's their warrior. Now, believe it or not, it's not all based on size. This little guy ranks pretty decently here, even though she is the smallest. She does pretty well in Fluff-Offs, and she's really quick, and she's not mean, but she's not very loving. So she did decently in the Fluff-Offs. She's not the lowest chicken here. Some of the bigger ones who are just sweeter, but it was really interesting watching them grow up. I mean, very, very early on, it was clear that Teapot was most likely going to be chosen as the leader. And as you got to know her temperament and her personality, it matched well with one that would fit as a leader and one that would be chosen for the leader. And being the only one with any real distinct markings, anyone with any other chicken with distinct markings has a pair, so they're not unique anymore. Teapot was the only unique chicken that had the most different markings. I say that because there was also Poe and Stugatz, who are both dead now, but who also did not have a pair, so they were also unique. But Stugatz didn't look very much different than our New Hampshire Red, so she wasn't entirely unique. And Poe kind of looked like one of these, so she wasn't entirely unique either. Teapot stood out by far, visually. She was also the biggest, and also her temperament fit very, very well for one that would end up being a leader and be chosen by the others as a leader. So very, very quickly, when it was about time to choose the leader, Teapot just stood out in every way. Like I said, during the Fluff-Off stage, and sometimes after a Fluff-Off of, let's say, a black man and a buff, let's say black man won, Teapot would then go, oh, by the way, I'm going to immediately fluff off you just to let you know you may have won that chicken, but you'll never be above me. And Teapot would sometimes just go up to the winner and fluff them off real quick, and then they'd be like, whoa, 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 and they'd back down, usually. And if they stood up to Teapot for a little bit, then they'd have a little fluff off, but it never lasted very long, because Teapot never backed down, and they always ended up backing down. And eventually, when Teapot would fluff them off, it wasn't so much that they were backing down, as they started to respect her and fear her more. If Teapot stood up to them, they would just quickly back down, because they didn't want to stand up to Teapot anymore. They were starting to understand their place, and they were starting to respect Teapot. So as Teapot came up to them like that, they were starting to see that as they did something wrong, or maybe it's just nothing they wanted a part of, so they wouldn't even, so now when two chickens started fighting and Teapot starts walking up to them looking big, both of them just kind of chilled out. And that's basically that was like the transformation into being the leader. And I got to watch all of this develop daily for, several hours a day I would spend with the chickens over the course of a day. I got to see who is being so loud for like a long time. Who was doing that? Because you're about to get petted. Oh, don't peck my face. They've never pecked my face before, but I'm just being careful. I'm petting the sweet little guy. Yeah. Other than watching Stugatz and Poe, probably my favorite thing about the entire process of chickens has been watching Teapot's transformation into the leader, and she's been the leader for a long, long time. It's not like it was recent. So since she's become the leader, I've got to observe the fundamental differences in Teapot's behavior versus all of the other behaviors, because all of the other chickens act very similarly in most ways, and the differences that Teapot has isn't because of the different species, the different kind of chicken that she is. It's because of her position in the pack. For instance, I've analyzed on some days they're all carefree outside, pecking the ground, scratching the ground, just not paying attention to me, not paying attention to nothing. They're just happy and having fun, except I'll notice that Teapot is standing somewhere that she can see all of them at once, and she's not moving around and pecking anything. She's actually scanning from chicken to chicken to see what they're doing, and then looking in the woods and in the surrounding areas. I'll see her stare off into each spot and then turn her head, and she's actually, it looks like she's watching for predators and watching her flock to make sure they're okay, because none of them, when this is happening, none of them are looking up. They're not looking into the sky, which they commonly do, because there's large birds like hawks and owls that fly in our sky that they see often. You're trying to peck me. I'll get a little closer so you can peck me. And they scare the chickens, and they'll stare up into the sky and they'll watch them. But when this is happening and they're just going carefree, Teapot's the only one that's paying attention, and it's obvious that she's looking at the chickens most of the time to make sure that they're all okay. She's actually watching over them, so it's interesting to see the different behavior that Teapot has that none of the other chickens have. So it's just, there's no question that she's the leader. So many different. She's not very agile. She's not very good at flying and jumping. She's the worst flyer and the least coordinated of them all. I'm not sure if it's partly due to what kind of chicken she is, but I know it's partly due to the fact that she's just the biggest. I think she's just the clumsiest too, but it's okay. But yeah, these little guys are sweet. The little buff mans. The Orpingtons. Come here, sweet little guy. Come here. I mean, also they picked Teapot because she's got fluffy feet. The only one that we have with fluffy feet. I mean, they saw that and they're like, whoa, you're the leader. You're the leader. Let's put the fluff. Oh, so soft. Teapot makes a sweet little sound like, whoa, but much higher. Listen. But that wasn't a good one. Ow, you're pecking me. Teapot, make this sweet little sound. Teapot, do it. No, that's not it. Oh, you're actually being pretty quiet. Hello, little buff. Pat the buff man, pat the buff man. Buff Orpington. Oh, squatter man. Pat the fluffy tail, pat the fluffy tail. Someone tried to fly up there and they were successful. Sugatsi used to be our champion flyer. She made the official longest flight of any chicken, had the most altitude and distance, and best landing. But now that Sugatsi's dead, our champion flyer is Dr. Sweets. Which one's Dr. Sweets? Okay, as soon as I ask which one's Dr. Sweets is like, me? Dr. Sweets is our best flyer. She can currently, we don't know how high she can fly, but she can and does fly over the outside fence, which I believe is 7 or 8 feet. Is it 8 feet or 7 feet? I don't know. I just don't remember. If I stood next to it, I could probably figure it out. But it's either 7 or 8 feet tall, and she's the only one that flies over it. It may be that some of the other, like Teapot, I'm certain just physically cannot fly that high. She can't fly over it. I do believe that some of the other ones, like Ginger, I believe she can do it. I just don't think that she knows she can do it, so she doesn't try, because she's actually a more athletic and smarter chicken than Dr. Sweets. And being smaller, having more strength to weight ratio, she should be able to fly. Actually, I've seen her fly over a pretty high fence once when she needed to, so she can when she needs to. I guess maybe she just doesn't feel the need to. But pretty much all the time, this little guy flies, and this is it's our second largest chicken, and she manages to fly all the way over the fence, really high up. So she's our champion flyer. Oh, look at you guys. You're all like stuck here between me and over there. Oh my goodness, in my dream last night I was crying because I was like going through this tunnel, and it wasn't even a small tunnel, it was pretty large. And it wasn't even a tunnel, it was just like inside of a building. It was like a hallway, but we called it a tunnel. And I was like crying because I was apparently claustrophobic, which I'm not. and they were like, I was like, I think someone asked me why I was crying. I said it was because I'm claustrophobic and I'm in this tunnel. But it was very wide, and it wasn't even that long. It was just like around a corner. You know, it was probably like 10 feet long. It would take like a couple seconds to walk through, really. But it devastated me, and I was crying. I was crying pretty hard too. Wow, what did I really feel? And I didn't. And I know how I felt during the dream. I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel suffocated. I didn't feel claustrophobic. So why was I using that as the excuse that I was crying? I was in a tunnel. Technically, someone who had claustrophobia could have felt trapped in that situation because there were walls on every side if you were in the center of the bend of the corner. But I didn't feel like that. So why was I crying? I don't know. Most of my dreams make a lot of sense, and they're really, really intricate and awesome. And I did have a long, intricate, awesome dream last night, but that wasn't it. And that one didn't make any sense, so have fun with it. It was a small dream. That was basically the whole thing. I was going through this tunnel. It was really indoor. It was like a building, an indoor building. You know, it wasn't like I was outside in a cave or going like on the road through a mountain tunnel. Not like that. It was you know, I was clearly in a building somewhere, and it was just a hallway, but it was it was like a not a half circle, like a semicircle, but like most of a semicircle. So it was like a corner, you know, around a bend hallway, but it was very smooth round. And then I just started crying. And then I guess I stopped in the tunnel and I just stayed there crying, and that was, you know, I told you the rest of it already. That was the dream. I don't know. Usually when I'm crying in my dreams, I know why, and it is true. But that one is not true. I mean, I'm in a tiny little chicken coop right now with 8 chickens, and I'm feeling great, so, you know, I don't know. Someone who knows how to interpret dreams could tell me what it means, but I haven't been given that gift for this particular dream, I guess, so. Silly dream. Oh my goodness, I know why I dreamed it. Should I even bother telling you? It's because yesterday I was thinking of a story in which, oh goodness, I don't want to go into the details, but basically yesterday I thought of a short story that I wanted to write, in which someone would live their life and then be told something, and then they would start crying terribly hard, and they would cry very badly, and then something would happen that would make the reason that they were crying not valid anymore, and then they would just be crying for no reason, but then they would stop crying because they'd realize there's no reason to cry. And I could go into detail on what the specifics are, but I won't. I'll save that for my short story that I'm going to write. But I spent, like, you know, a good half hour thinking about this story, and isn't that basically what I dreamt about? I was crying about something that could be real, but it ended up not being real for me because I wasn't claustrophobic, and then I was just crying for no reason, and then I think I did eventually end up stop crying. So that's not what the story is about. Those aren't the details of the story. It's completely different than what I had in mind and what I came up with. But, you know, my mind decided to give me a dream that was about something completely different, but along the exact same thought process, the same lines. So that's... Alright, dream debunked. Interesting, huh? I think my version's better, though. The story I came up with. Because as you can tell, my dream wasn't that entertaining. But the dream that, not the dream, but the story that I thought of consciously when I was awake, it's kind of sad, but it has way more meaning than the dream I had. Way more meaning. Although it doesn't, because it's actually essentially completely pointless, except it's just to prove a point. For the sake of proving the point, though, for no other reason. So maybe my dream's purpose was to actually show me that although I came up with a clever story, there's absolutely no value in sharing it, because, just like the dream. There's actually no ultimate point in it, which I already knew there was no ultimate point in it. But it's a clever concept, so I just wanted to share it in the form of a story. So shut up, subconscious, I already know. And I know because you are me. I'm still gonna do it. Or should I do it? I don't know. Whatever. Teapot, you're big and fluffy. Whoa, look at Teapot trying not to fall off. You're so uncoordinated, Teapot. It's amazing. How have you outlived Poe and Stu Gods? Is it because you're so big and fluffy every time you fall you don't get hurt? So we'll make this a half-hour video, then we'll call it quits. I just wanted to give these guys a little love in the morning. Gingerbread, that feather finally fell out. The feather that was sticking out of your leggy side area. What are you guys doing back there? They were like crammed into that spot. I wish I'd seen it a little earlier. I wonder how long they were like that. These guys are so funny. You guys know that it's about to be light outside, right? And you'll be able to go outside like momentarily. Do you guys know that? They don't believe me. I'll prove it to them. I'll prove it to them. Okay, guys, do you see how light it is in the doorway and how it just gradually gets a little darker and a little darker? It's about to get gradually a little lighter and a little lighter till it's just as light as it is in there. So very, very, very shortly, chickens, you'll have access to all this again where you can see. They're like, I don't believe you. It's never going to get light again. Yesterday was the last day of sunlight. It was the last day of sun. Aaron, shout out. Yep, these chickens think that yesterday was the last day of sun. But it wasn't. Sun will shine today as well. They don't have to believe it. It's still going to happen. The sun shining does not depend on the chickens' belief in it. It shines regardless. And it shines upon the chickens. And they love it. Oh, chicken man, chicken man. One more minute till a half hour of the video, and then the video ends. So chickens, say your final thoughts and all that. Say your goodbyes and say anything that you want to say before we end it. Guys, it's definitely getting brighter out. They love morning when it's bright enough to go outside because everything is new because it's a new day. They just love the outside. They love it. It's their favorite place to be. Where there's grass and dirt and bugs. That's where they want to be. Oh, someone just fell. Or didn't fall, but they hopped off and flapped. Oh, look at you. You're the bravest. You're Dr. Sweets. You're the brave one who's we can't see because it's so dark. But one of the chickens came down here on the ground with me. It's Dr. Sweets. Oh, and now Ginger is down here too. They're the bravest of all the birds. You just can't see them because there's no light. Oh, now the buffs. Oh, they found a patch of light, so they're all going to it. That's the only place they're going to go to watch. And now the ones are making shadow, so now the ones in the front are no longer in the light, and they probably feel weird. Because they're like, I was in the light, now I'm not. Oh no, now I'm in darkness and I can't see. They're so funny. And now they all leave it because there's no light. And then there becomes, I can't, that doesn't the camera pick up, there's a bunch of light right there. And then there becomes a bunch of light. And now the chickens are like, and then one chicken goes over there because there's light. And then they're all going to go over there. And then it's going to be dark again. And then they're going to all leave it again. That's so funny. They don't understand how it works. They're like, this light's better. It doesn't go away. Yeah, because they're closer to the light source. Silly. And you guys no longer produce the same shadow when you're closer to it. Silly birds. They don't know what burping sounds like because they just all got a little nervous. Can I pet the teapot or would you run away from me? She's already running. I took one step towards her. She's moving. Teapot does not prefer to be petted. I think it's just I think if we had another light Brahma that we might be able to pet it. I don't know, but I think we might be able to. I think whoever's the leader just wouldn't want you to pet them because they're like the leader of the pack. They don't want